Hello, I am Xarkun, and this is World of Warships Legends. You might be wondering why you're seeing this video today, because today is, of course, Friday, and that is my usual streaming day. That is because I have some plans tonight, some personal, social plans, that I don't really want to break, and thus I'm not going to actually have time to stream tonight. But fear not, I will stream instead on Saturday or Sunday, so keep a lookout for me this weekend. As for today, though, I want to talk about the new line of Russian or Soviet aircraft carriers. And I've got a game in the Tier 5 Russian aircraft carrier Serov, which, spoiler alert, is going to result in a solo warrior for me. And actually, that's kind of funny because I'm pretty sure the last aircraft carrier I featured in a video was the premium Japanese aircraft carrier Zuiho, and in that game I also got a solo warrior. This game is not quite the same because I think I'm going to be doing a heck of a lot more damage with the Serov than I did with the Zuiho. In my opinion, these Russian CVs are incredibly potent. And if you don't really like CVs the way I don't, well, then you're probably not too excited to see these being added to the game. Keep in mind, this is just the Tier 5 carrier, right? And we dropped a spread of torpedoes against the Andrea Doria out there. Hit him for 14,000 damage. That is quite significant. These Russian carriers have a unique gimmick, and you might have noticed it by now. The gimmick is that their squadrons all drop in one go. On all the other aircraft carriers in this game, you send up a squadron of planes, say it's 6 planes, 3 of them split off to drop their ordnance. Not the case with these Russians. Instead, all of them drop their ordnance at the same time. That means you get 1 drop instead of multiple drops per attack squadron. And that means the Alpha Strike can be quite big indeed. They've also got a new ordnance type there. You saw it against that destroyer, the skip bombers. And you can see the 3 lines on the reticule. Those represent how many times the bombs are going to bounce. And the bombs drop in a horizontal line. So when you're lining them up on your target, you'll want to go for the broadside, no matter what the target is. And it doesn't matter which line you line them up on, the first, second, or third line. If you line them up on the first line, of course, they're going to drop more like conventional HE bombs in the sense that they're going to hit that line, and if that line is on the target, hopefully they're going to hit the target. So typically I use that against destroyers that I don't spot right away. Tend to use the second or third line for cruisers, and for battleships, for the most part, I always use the third line. Now, when you drop these, you do often have to provide a little bit of lead. It's almost like you're aiming high explosive guns, in a sense, except that you want to aim them at broadsides, of course. So if a ship is traveling fast, you want to account for that, because there's going to be some time passing between the time the bombs actually hit the water to begin with and the time they reach their target. It's not something I can necessarily explain in great detail as far as how the leading works with these carriers. Just know that you do have to lead with the HE skip bombs, just like you would have to lead with guns, although the lead time is a little bit less. Same thing with the torpedoes, of course. These torpedoes are outrageously slow. I think they only go at something like 40 knots. So if you're going to aim them at a battleship, you do have to take a very significant amount of lead indeed, especially when you get into the higher tier CVs and battleships have higher top speeds. You can see we do a very nice lead right there, again against the poor Andrea Doria, who we have been harassing. And they just hit him for, a metric ton of damage. These torpedoes are incredibly effective against battleships. In fact, they're very good because once you get the reticule tightened up all the way, the torpedoes launch in a narrow spread. So if you've got a battleship in a position where he's pretty stationary and he's sort of bow tanking you on your approach to him, you can still hit him with a lot of torpedoes on the nose. And in fact, that may be a very advisable thing for you to do, because the torpedo protection on ships doesn't extend to the bow or stern. So I find that if you do, in fact, use the torpedoes to hit the bow or the stern, they tend to cause flooding a lot more. And that's to say nothing of these high explosive bombs, which cause fires left and right so long as they hit. And if they can penetrate the surface of the armor that they hit, they can do a ridiculous amount of damage. I don't know that we really get any big hits with the skip bombers in this game, but shortly after I played this game, I unlocked the Tier 7 carrier, the Pobeda, and I took that out with the skip bombers, and holy crap, I hit a Yamato for like 12 or 13,000 damage in the broadside with these high explosive bombs, and started 2 fires. So as you can imagine, that is fantastic, and I have no complaints about that kind of damage output whatsoever. If you detected the sarcasm there, congratulations. These Russian carriers are incredibly strong, but the way that you use them is, again, a little bit different from your typical carrier gameplay in World of Warships Legends. I've already seen people saying that these carriers are not strong because the torpedoes are too slow, or they don't have to, or they don't know how to use the dive bombers, or the skip bombers, rather. I'm tripping all over my words here, I apologize. But if that's the case, there is no universe in which these carriers need a buff. They are incredibly strong as is, and if you're not getting good results from them, then consider taking the time to buff your own skills rather than asking for buffs. Sorry if that rankles any feathers in the comments section, but seriously, get good with carriers before you start asking for them to be buffed. They don't require buffs, they're strong enough as is, and they have all kinds of advantages that surface ships don't enjoy. If you can't take advantage of those advantages, then it's a you problem, not a ship problem. In any case, another thing about these carriers is you'll notice that the lead on the reticule is a long time. I find when you're dropping the torpedoes against ships, or even the skip bombers against ships, you want to start your drops a heck of a lot later, for the most part, than you do in other CVs. That's because these torpedoes have a 6-kilometer range when you put them in the water, and the skip bombers can start at about 6 kilometers out when they make their dive. And if you do choose to start out a lot further on your bombing runs and the like, it tends to be that you don't lose a lot of planes to the anti-aircraft guns of your opponents. You can see there in that drop against the Fuso, our torpedo bombers are now retreating. We've lost 1 torpedo bomber, and that's it. Looks like you get basically 2 squadrons worth of planes on this particular ship. You get 12 planes in total. I think there might be a couple extra planes in reserve to account for any losses you might suffer. But if you conserve your planes correctly and perform your drops optimally, you'll find that you almost never lose planes in these things. This thing is very, very good at not losing planes, and frankly, it's a little bit of an annoyance if you're a surface ship, because occasionally, if you drop those bombs out from far enough, your bombers aren't even inside of the AA bubbles of ships in some instances. Think ships with shorter anti-aircraft range, like I believe the Italian battleships. You might be able to drop the ordnance outside of the AA bubbles, which could be a problem. And there we screw up a drop against the Fuso. You'll also have noticed, if you were paying attention to the gameplay before that screwed up torpedo drop on the Fuso, that when we came over an island with the skip bombers, the lines on the reticule turned orange. It seems like if you're going to drop the bombs over the islands and you start your approach over the islands, you won't be able to skip the bombs until enough time has passed. So that's something to keep a lookout for. But battleships, let me tell you, look out. You do not want to be on the receiving end of one of these full torpedo drops if you're in a battleship. And some ways you can avoid being on the receiving end are don't play so stationary when these carriers are out and about, because, like I said, the torpedoes are very, very slow. And that doesn't mean they're bad. In fact, they're ridiculously good. That just means you need to get better at leading torpedoes if you can't hit them. Because once you learn how these torpedoes lead and you get a good feel for them, you can hit battleships over and over and over again without losing any planes, or barely any planes. You see there against the Fuso with our skip bombers, we only lost one plane yet again. So when these planes return to the CV, you can just launch them over and over and over again and farm damage with them if you so choose. Of course, you shouldn't be focused primarily on farming damage. You should be focused on taking out the destroyers to begin with any CV in any game. And that is what we were focused on in the beginning of this game. You'll notice we are the last ship left alive against 4 enemy ships, but we've got a majority of the capture circles. We've got Alpha, Bravo, and Delta, and we are about to overtake the enemy on points. So the only thing we have to worry about right now is not being sunk for the next 4 minutes, and we are not going to be sunk. In fact, we're just going to try to farm damage off of these ships and hopefully sink the Andrea Doria here in order to get ourselves some more points. So as we're doing this, just my general thoughts on the Russian CVs. I've seen some people say that they like the fact that these things drop in one strike, because that means the AA is more effective. That is, you get 6 planes, right? You drop 6 bombs in the case of the skip bombers. Well, if one of those planes gets shot down on the run in toward the target, then that means you're losing a bomb to drop. So theoretically, it means AA actually matters. Except no, AA doesn't matter, because as I've already shown you, you can start the drop pretty far out, and then as soon as the drop is over and the planes fly up in the air, I think they are immune for a few seconds from actual damage from the AA. So you don't end up losing many planes at all. And here at the tail end of the game, we are not in danger of not being able to send up full squadrons. We can still send up full squadrons. You see, as soon as the torpedo bombers and the dive bombers, or the skip bombers rather, return to the ship and get rearmed, there's 6 of them raring to go. We have not had to send out a squadron of less than 6 planes for the entirety of this game. And that can be kind of difficult to achieve with other aircraft carriers flying into AA all the time. Not difficult at all to achieve with these Russian carriers. In fact, I would say it's too easy, and maybe they need a nerf in that sense, honestly. I think these carriers are very strong. I think they're probably amongst the strongest line in the game. You could make the case that the German carriers are the strongest line, but with these kind of skip bombs and their ability to do damage and fires, plus the excellent torpedo bombers, which are very good, and you can see here an example of dropping them at a bow-on battleship. We'll take note as these torpedoes travel through the water and activate how long or how many hit the Fuso in the bow, and it's 3 of them, exactly half the drop. We're just unlucky to not get a flood there. But you can see there's about 60 seconds left to go in this game. There's really no way that these ships are going to be able to sink us, since we're hidden behind the island right here. So essentially, we win this game by default and by not being sunk. There we take out the, what was that, the Trento, so that's our 3rd kill of the game. We're going to finish this game with 96,000 damage done and 3 kills, plus the high caliber medal. So I think that's a pretty good result for a tier 5 carrier. And like I said, with the Pobeda, as soon as I can get a good game in that, I suppose I'll put it up with a commentary if you guys want to see that. These carriers are ridiculously strong. If you like carriers, you're gonna like these. If you think carriers are bad for the game, well, this is just going to further reinforce that point of view. These things are ridiculous, at least in my opinion. Now, feel free to let me know what you think in the comments section, but if you tell me you think these CVs need buffed, well, my response to you is probably going to be get good, because there we're top of the leaderboard with this carrier, solo warrior, high caliber metal. That is because these carriers are ridiculously capable, almost too capable, you might say. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.